stuff. Oh, it says, okay, Michael's saying hello from Malawi. And Skies is here from Malaysia. Hello. So I guess we can just get started. I'll just, if I miss a question, just poke me, Stacey. Is that okay?
Yes, I can try to poke you.
Good.
From afar.
All right. Actually, I don't think I'm going to just leave my comments over here.
And hello to Rebecca from Natick, Massachusetts. Thanks for joining us.
Yay, Massachusetts represent. Okay, so let me do the official intro, and then I want to ask you in just a minute how things are in my home state, even though I'm 8,000 miles away. So thank you for joining us. This is my longtime friend, Stacey Piwinski, who is a Boston-based artist. I say Boston-based because if you're not familiar with the towns and areas surrounding it, it's just easier for people, especially joining from other countries. This talk was originally scheduled to be in the metaverse, and I have to like make it look all futuristic when I say that. Not that this really makes anything look futuristic, but there you go. It's sort of like shorthand for futuristic. And we have a show there in a gallery called Ma Kalulu Studio, which I realize nobody's going to be able to remember. So it also says art by Kristen. So if you remember my name, then you can find the gallery that we have our show in the metaverse. Where do you go to get that? You have to go to ArtgateVR. ArtgateVR.com, and I could actually just pop the link in the comments over here. So ArtgateVR.com,
and then download an app.
Yeah, you can go to their events page. You will see our event, which originally was going to take place there, but we decided it was going to be a heck of a lot easier for both us and anyone that wanted to hear this talk that we meet here in Facebook, because it's something that people know how to do. And then I would say like in about 40 minutes from now, if you are interested in dipping your toes in the metaverse, Stacey and I will be your lifeguards, and we will gently coax you into the waters of the metaverse if you want to come. And basically all you need, if you have, I'm not expecting you to have, because very few people actually have these. This is thanks to my husband, Michael, who's also on this call. He is the early adopter of new technologies in our family. Which I should be, because I'm the professor of digital media, but I think because of that I get like really into tools and technologies that I know, and then later I adapt to things later, but he's like on the ball. So we got one of these headsets when we were in the US in June, and so you can access ArtgateVR with the headset, or you can download a free app that works on a PC or a Mac. The problem we were having is we could go into our show, we could talk, but we couldn't hear each other. It works better with the headset. So we'll help you get there if you want to take a look around. But anyway, so welcome to our talk, and I'm gonna let Stacey maybe tell you a little bit about herself and her practice. She's a weaver. She paints like a weaver and weaves like a painter.
Aww.
Hi, Stacey. Thanks for joining.
Hi, Kristen. Good to see you from miles and miles away. Let's see. I think I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself, but I'm also going to tell you a little bit about like how Kristen and I have known each other for so long. We met at Mass Art way back when we were first freshmen there in the foundation program. And I think right away when we became friends, we had always made our joke that we shared a brain. Who really has the right side of the brain and who has the left side of the brain is a little up for discussion. But
I thought we swapped it around.
We do kind of think it's more like instead of a cut here, so a cut this way. So anyhow, we think alike in lots of ways, but also come from different, well, right now, different areas of the world, but different perspectives. So over all of these years, we've been able to keep our brain connection. And let's see, I went from being a painter, I transferred over to Boston University and did a lot of representational painting. And I went from that to now doing more work that's abstract, really tactile, and works in textiles and weaving that I do on a Sayori floor loom. So things have evolved and changed over the years, as they have for my friend Kristen. But always we end up sort of circling back to one another and inspiring each other in our practice. And I think that's where the idea of this talk sort of came from.
Right.
That sounds good.
Yeah. And the last time we saw each other in the real world was actually, was it June or July? Something like that. It was a few months. It was like 5 or 6 months ago. Summer. Yeah. And we try to see each other in the real world at least once a year if possible. Before that, there was like 2-year gap because of the pandemic. And it's interesting how much has changed. Not, like some things have changed for the worse because of the pandemic, just for all of us. But some things have gotten better, and especially maybe the adaptation of online tools and technologies that even Bill Gates, and there was an article that recently came out, how he was saying that meetings in the next 3 years are going to be moving to the metaverse. And I had been thinking for a long time, just as someone who started dabbling in online teaching since 2014, that it would be so nice if for an online course, you could enter a virtual room, you have your student from Uruguay, your student from South Africa, your student from Japan, and we're all sitting in the same space, and I can look over their shoulder at their whatever their avatars are doing. Like I really see that, and Bill Gates was recently confirming that that's sort of where everything's going. So I am excited about the metaverse and these technologies, and maybe one good thing, if anything good can come from the pandemic, it's that maybe it kind of forces people to adopt these new technologies that they otherwise maybe would have ignored for another 10 years or so.
Yeah, developing things a little faster. And then also, I think the other great thing that comes from the pandemic, which I hate to say great thing from a pandemic, it seems like a strange thing to say, but it is keeping connections with people far away. So, we've always kept that in-person connection maybe once a year or once every other year. And it always feels like, it hasn't been a long time in between, and we get back together and it's right where we left off. And that's where that, the brains are working. But there's something wonderful about the way the pandemic has made us connect to people internationally. So we can just jump on a call and, I can talk to my friend in London and I can talk to you in Malawi, and we can have these discussions and we can see each other. I mean, very futuristic.
I know, it's like the Jetsons have come alive.
I know, our childhood cartoons, and we're like in them.
Yes. I guess I should maybe just talk a little bit about, so you were talking about your journey from painting student to where you are now, and obviously you can elaborate more on what you're doing now, but I'll just, I guess I'll just jump in, go back to 1994. It was a smelly time. It was a smelly time. I was right in the middle of like those grungy years. No, do you remember, Stacey? I used to tell you about the smelly sculpture boys. Do you remember the smelly sculpture boys?
I kind of do, actually. I wonder if any
or can you still
sculpture boys will see this.
Well, I'm sure they all grew up into non-smelly sculpture men that are,
Yes.
bathing.
They might be men that it was like bars of soap now. Who knows?
It was like this grungy time when anyway. So one thing I remember, besides the smells of that time, is it was this this period when I was studying painting. I was surrounded by all these creative people. Some people who did not believe in personal hygiene, but that's okay. It was the 90s. We'll give you a pass on that one. And so I was studying painting, and that was what I wanted to do. I've always been ridiculously idealistic and optimistic, and I always thought as a teenager, before going to art school, that painting and art and color and symbols could sort of uplift people, could inspire positive social change, could inspire understanding, empathy, could make people feel better, could be used for visualizing better goals. So I went to art school, but that was not what do I want to say here? It wasn't it was like my vibe was clashing with something else. And so I started to feel like, oh, maybe I'm being a bit impractical. what am I going to do to pay the bills? And da 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 da. So I started to really kind of move in a more practical direction. So after studying painting, I switched to digital media. I began kind of playing with animation, computers. That led to web design, graphic design. I liked doing all those things because I felt like I was supporting myself as an artist, and I did. And then right after graduate school, I started teaching at universities. So first I started as a graduate student at Pratt Institute in Brooklyn, New York. Pratt, woo! And then I got my first full-time teaching job in the art department at good old William Patterson University, a place I still hold dear in my heart because those students reminded me a lot of people that I knew and grew up with in Swansea, Massachusetts, like more like of a working class crowd, first people in their family to go to college, that sort of thing. So I really gelled with those students, and I felt like I could help them out a lot. And then I moved to Rome, Italy, in the communications department. So I basically started doing like a lot of like design and education stuff, but I kind of got further and further away from those early ideals. And long story short, I'm kind of coming around full circle and trying to revisit those ideals of my teen days, because though I may be a bit older now, I tell my kids I'm only 15 in my head. So I'm trying to match up. But Stacey, do you want to talk a little bit about the kind of art that you're making now, and maybe how your practice is the same or different because of digital tools and the pandemic's influence, for better or worse?
Yeah, so just, bouncing off your story, I will say that, while you were traveling the world and going from interesting place to interesting place and doing all your different teaching, I was teaching in one place for the most part, and I was teaching little kids. And there's something really wonderful about little kids being so free and colorful in their making. And I think that had a lot of influence on the work that I was doing personally. So when I went back to graduate school and I decided to get an MFA in studio art, then I had been teaching for quite some time. So the work really took on this more abstract, colorful quality. I think it was coming out of a lot of my working with kids. And it was also coming out of the stress and the rigor of working with kids, where I go home and I would do this meditative weaving to sort of ground myself. And I think this connects with some of the work you're currently doing as well. So we'll circle back to that. But the work that I was doing started off with this kind of push and pull between the painted work and the woven work, and putting the two together, and the kind of tension between the two, and then the melding the two together. And then I kind of got to a place where I was like, I don't know if I really even need the painting so much anymore. So then it became all fiber-based. And the work that I'm currently doing right now, and was doing during the pandemic, are woven tapestries that I'd weave right off the wall that would be completely fiber-based. So the work in the metaverse show, if you can enter our gallery space, headset or no headset, is work that was done during the pandemic while I was transitioning from being an in-person art educator to a virtual art educator. I had done these small works called virtual classrooms, which I actually, have one right here. So here is a virtual classroom, and each color and shape represents a person, and I would group these people together into one tapestry or one classroom, and I'd have my own little cohort of students that don't really know each other in person, maybe have never met, and I've just grouped together into this classroom. Simultaneously, while doing these virtual classroom tapestries, I was making a much larger one called The Portrait of a Virtual Community, which included so many people. And these tapestries began using flannel, like going right back to our days in the 90s and our grunge years, and in lots of flannel. But they began with using flannel remnants from the Vermont Flannel Company when I was out there at a residency, and they were done with people. So they were done in connection with people and off of community involvement, a labor exchange, and the telling of stories kind of guiding the process of making these tapestries. And then all of a sudden a pandemic hits and you can't work with people anymore. So it became this virtual tapestry of people, which, you know, feels like the exact right thing to put in a metaverse show right now, as we're experimenting with this medium. So, but
Excellent.
I would love to circle back and kind of pose this question to you in terms of how the pandemic has influenced your artwork, especially when I'm thinking about mindfulness, meditation, your representation of using the chakras in your most recent work, and why during a pandemic you kind of chose to work with those themes in the work that you're making now.
Awesome. Yeah, actually, I have, well, before I do that, I have to show you. And by the way, hi, Troy. I see Troy from ArtgateVR Collective is here. That's a lovely group. I'm going to have to drop the link to that as well. And I wanted to introduce Stacey to ArtgateVR as well. But this is something that we made together back in 2018. So before the pandemic, so Stacey got me, a computer geek, to weave something. I'm still in awe. I mean, okay, so basically I made the like really like 4-year-old scribbling with crayons one.
No, the very expressive Sayori one.
She works with kids, so she's being very polite. But she made like the really, you know, the one that you could probably sell. But we went to her studio, where was that studio? I can't remember now.
Waltham, Massachusetts. Waltham Mills.
Okay. And I loved her idea because she basically attached our two things that we wove together. So basically she was describing this as our conversation. So as she was weaving this one, I was weaving this one, and we were chatting the whole time. And this is her visual representation of that day when we were just chatting together. And that was the day that I decided I wanted to be a quote-unquote real artist again, because I have always been an artist. However, I felt like a lot of my work was for other people. It was for clients. It still is. I still do work. I have some awesome UN organizations that UNICEF, United Nations Population Fund, WHO, even World Food Program. One of my favorite bands, the B-52s, I used to do their website like back in the day, like 2006. I love them. I got to meet them because of that. That was cool. But a lot of my work was for other people. Or when I was in university teaching, I felt this pressure. You know, you have pressure that they rehire you every year when you're on the tenure track. And then I got tenure, thank God. I got tenure and I got promoted to Associate Professor of Digital Media at the American University of Rome. But I found I was doing a lot of things for like my resume, you know, like for academia and not for me. So the pandemic, I'll be honest, you know, in January, my family and I, we got sick. We got what was then called the South African variant. I can't remember what it's called now because they don't call it that anymore, but it was found in South Africa about a year ago. And I can tell you this, I know most people by now have had COVID or have a friend or family member who got sick or thought they had it or whatever, but there was a lot of stigma around it, and there still is, but not like last year. But we were sick and we were very careful. So it's not a fair disease. You can be so careful, but then just one person, one germ from a kid's hand, whatever it is, like you could be the most careful person in the world, and the most lax person in the world might never get sick or never have any symptoms. So I was sick in January. It was not bad, but it was like a mental thing, like, oh my God, I have a disease and I'm in Malawi and there's only 10 ventilators in the whole country. I don't know how many they have now, but at the beginning of the pandemic, they only had 8 ventilators in the entire country. So we were not feeling like so prepared for like a worldwide pandemic a year ago. Things are much better now, and I hope they stay that way. I think we're in for like a 4th wave. Anyway, long story short, I was feeling reflective. And I had started already before getting sick, drawing again. I don't know if you can see. behind me on the wall, just like some little patterns and things that I was doing, but just like as studies. And around that time, I said, yeah, I'm going to just dive back in again. And I just made a practice out of it. Oh, there's one of them. That one was actually right after we met up in July. I think we went to Germany after the US this year. So I made that in Germany. I was inspired by the graffiti, and it was Pride Month. And the neighborhood that Michael's parents live in, they're like, been living there since the East German communist days. And but all around them are artists and squatters and pride and every lifestyle you can imagine. So that's what inspired that. Stacey has a print on fine art watercolor paper. Anyway, yeah, I made a practice out of it. So 30 minutes to 90 minutes a day in the morning, I work in my studio, and then I start my work day for other people. But with consistency, I have built up a body of work. I launched my online gallery, Ma Kalulu Studio, in August, and things are going well. So yeah, I'm going to stop there, otherwise I'll just keep talking.
Well, I do want to, I asked you that question. You didn't answer me yet.
What was I supposed to say?
Circling back to the question, I mean, I know we have so many things we could talk about, and I love the story of what made you go back from computer-based art to working with drawing and painting. And I think telling that story first makes sense. But I was asking you a little bit about the idea of how your current work and your current body of work that's represented on your website really connects with mindfulness, meditation, the chakras, and how going through all the things you were talking about during the pandemic, scares with COVID, so on and so forth, kind of brought you to working with that theme within your work.
Awesome. You could be a reporter, holding people accountable. Don't let them dodge their questions.
Oh,
no,
it's all
sorry.
these teaching years, like, come on.
I'm so evasive. No, thank you.
I'm just putting you back on track, my other side of the brain.
Yeah, no, thank you, because this side of the brain tends to wander. But I would just say this, and people that have known me for a long time know that I'm big into creative visualization and manifestation. And when I was 20, back in those smelly 90s days of the Smelly Sculpture Boys, I picked up a book by Shakti Gawain. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. She wrote the book called Creative Visualization, which is like a classic, and it's actually quite a small book. So it's actually a book I like to give out to students when they're graduating or recommend to other people. It's basically, the whole gist of it is, imagine how you want your life to go, and therefore your thoughts will become reality. There's different ways to go about that, but this has been a consistent theme in my life for like, what, 25 years now. I'm still meditating. I know, I don't want to give my age. But, I'm still meditating every day. I'm still doing creative visualizations and those exercises. And I thought that it could be helpful for people if they're trying to manifest strength to use colors and symbols that represent strength in different cultures. Or abundance. Abundance is a big one because, people tend to feel like, they're lacking, they have bills, they have debts, that kind of thing. Or love, or, community, or just being heard, or success, or, these kind of things. So that's where my current body of work started. However, I find it kind of goes in like all these different directions as well, because color is a huge theme in my work. I'm a big fan of color psychology. My poor students in Malawi, the live ones that I have here for UNFPA, not poor. I mean, what I mean is I am constantly talking about color psychology, and now they're doing it, and they're telling everyone about color psychology. So I'm sorry, guys, if your friends think you're annoying, but it's really useful, and they've even said how useful it's been to learn about color psychology. So I believe in the power of color to make people feel the way you want them to feel. I'm actually wearing orange because it's a creativity, energetic color. I just wanted to bring a bit of good cheer to our talk today. But you can use color strategically in your work to make people feel a certain way. So colors, symbols, cross-cultural symbolism. I've been fortunate enough to live and work on 4 continents and visit 5. I haven't been to Antarctica or Australia yet. But I don't think I ever want to go to Antarctica unless it's like just like a poke and then, you know, run away to like a hot cocoa station. But yeah, I'm a big fan of symbols and patterns that have cross-cultural significance. And if you think about our ancient ancestors, you know, the first artifacts that we find of our ancestors are cave paintings, cave art. We don't know exactly what they were doing, but scientists and people who study that speculate that it was a form of ancient creative visualization, that they would draw on the caves the animals that they wanted to catch in their hunt, and then they would go out and hunt those animals. So what we're doing now in 2021 and what people were doing tens of thousands of years ago is not changed that much, just the tools and the way that we do it has changed a little bit. So trying to tie all those little threads together. Look, and here's some more threads from our...
You're speaking my language.
I am. Oh, can I just say this one thing? This was Stacey's idea, to hang this up with a stick, and this stick is from my backyard in Yangon, Myanmar. And I don't know when I'll ever get to go back to Myanmar. I'm thinking about all our friends and family and former students there. But I'm thinking of you, and I'm hoping I can go back and visit you one day soon, and that things will get better. So, yeah, did I answer your question, I hope?
Yes, you did. That and more. Thank you.
Hey, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So, what made you interested in dabbling in the metaverse and ArtgateVR and possibly NFTs, which is something we talked about, and all of these online tools, not just being forced to because of the pandemic and, you know, you had to suddenly start teaching online? Have these been good things, or do you hate them? Or is it love-hate?
It's kind of love-hate, to tell you the truth. I am like the worst at wanting to do things like setting up and updating a website. Oh my gosh, it's like the worst task for me. Even during a pandemic, I haven't done it. So I'm sorry if my website is not as up to date, but I can spend all day like making a vessel out of yarn.
I'm so sorry, Stacey. Are we still live? Because I just got a message that we're like, we were still live. Oh.
We're still live. All is well.
Oh, we're still live, but I think our recording may have stopped. Okay, that's fine. Let's just keep going.
Okay, sounds good.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just thought we were like not live anymore.
No, I still see the red, and I still see we have some people watching. Thanks for sticking with us. Much appreciated. Yeah. All right, circling back to your question about dabbling in the metaverse and doing things that are more using tools that I'm less familiar with and tools that are less tactile and cozy and comfortable with what I've been doing. I'd have to say the answer to that question is working with you. So, Kristen, you've inspired me to do some of these things that are not necessarily the things that I would normally do. But I'm happy to join the metaverse, even if I have trouble like moving my little hands and trying to speak in there. I've been enjoying learning this and exploring this because we've been doing this together. So there's that community work, there's that getting back together and working collaboratively, which is something that pulls me into this. I also think that there's, like you said earlier, there's a lot of things that we're doing that can then be put into other platforms to share with a larger audience. So it's something that I need to get a little better at. So I'm glad to have that push. You look confused. Is everything okay on the technical end of this presentation?
Yeah, sorry. I have that. No, I saw a message from someone saying that they were having trouble finding the link to our live. I'm just gonna, sorry. Yeah, it's so funny. I make these horribly confused faces when I'm not paying attention that I'm on camera.
I've gotten used to like being able to look at kids when I'm working at them virtually and being like, wait a minute, what's going on with you? And I just saw that look on your face.
Yeah. Okay. But anyway, I sent him the link, so hopefully he can join. That's one of the last in. So like we have a couple people from Malawi joining us as well, which is awesome. Yeah, or trying to join anyway. But in any case, hopefully we'll have a recording of this as well.
portions of this will be recorded, hopefully some of it, so it can be shared later as well.
Do we want to, by the way, if anybody has any questions, you can ask us at any time, because I'm just kind of keeping an eyeball on the time. In about 10 minutes or so, we're going to actually go to the metaverse. Ready, Stacey? It's my metaverse hand gesture. Or Wayne's World. Yeah, I'm totally plagiarizing Wayne's World. Wow. But if you missed what we were talking about at the beginning, if you want to come to our show in the metaverse, you need to go to ArtgateVR.com, and you can just click there and they'll show you, like, there's a free app for the Mac, a free app for the PC. I think there's also an app for your phone that you can download. It actually doesn't take that long, and I have Malawian internet access, so I know. But it doesn't take that long to download. And then you go in and you're in a lobby, and to find our gallery, you would need to click on the menu. If you're using a headset, which I think no one here probably has, but if you're using the app, you click the space bar and then you can find our gallery. It says Ma Kalulu Studio, art by Kristen, and then you can see our show, which is called Left Brain, Right Brain. Did you want to add any helpful hints, Stacey?
Well, I do think that spacebar hint is a good one, because in the lobby, especially without a headset, you can be wandering around and seeing all of the other galleries. Yes, you're like little hands just wandering around, and you see all of the other galleries, but you don't necessarily see ours because you have to walk into another room, and that is a little difficult to do without a headset. So by pushing on the spacebar, it gives you a menu where you can scroll through, and then hi, Michael. You can see our universes collide. When you hit that space bar, you can scroll through and you'll see Kristen's studio, where the gallery is. And there's also a nice thumbnail with her artwork that you can see behind her that shows up there. Then you can go into the gallery and wander around and see things. And when you click on one of the images, it will tell you a little bit more about it.
Yes, you'll see on the when you just give it. So once you're in the lobby and then you go to our gallery, it'll just like be loading all the artwork. That might take like just a minute at the most, hopefully not longer than that. Then you're in and you'll be in a room, and you can use your mouse to kind of look around, and you can also kind of make your avatar dance that way too. But that's not functional. That's just for fun. And then you'll see the artwork. Next to each artwork is like a little info button where you can click on it. It'll give you information on the artwork, and if you really wanted to visit our virtual galleries, not in the metaverse but in the regular internet, you can click on that and it'll open it up for you. So it's really cool. I'm just curious, Stacey, what do you think about the metaverse so far? Like, good, bad, the ugly? Like, what has your experience been so far?
Well,
do you recommend it for artists?
When I first started to try to come into our gallery, I had a hard time finding it. And then once I found it, I didn't know the spacebar trick. So that also lets you leave the metaverse. So I felt like one day I got trapped in the metaverse, and the only way to get out was to turn off my computer because I didn't know how to get out of the metaverse. So, you know, for somebody like me that I am tech savvy enough to like teach virtually, but I knew nothing about the metaverse, there is definitely a learning curve. I also feel like, you know, to put on my teacher hat for a minute, I would wish that the metaverse were a little more inclusive for those that may not own one of the headsets, because I did see that cute video you did the other day, and with the headset, I mean, you could really make your avatar dance, but without the headset, you can't dance as well. So, you know, I'm feeling a little jealous about that. And, you know, with the headset, you can speak. Without the headset, nobody can hear you when you speak. So I think there's a few bugs to be worked out to make this a little more inclusive so that more people can join and participate in a more equal way.
Yeah, that's a great point. Actually, in that, Michael's here with me, so he knows too. That Bill Gates article, I think they're talking about how Microsoft and Facebook are developing the metaverse in the next, 10 years or whatever. But apparently one of their workarounds for the fact that almost nobody owns a headset isn't it, Michael, can you hear me? Aren't they gonna like make, what was it, like some kind of like 2D, 3D animation that sort of like is basically like an intermediate. So basically, like for people who don't have headsets, they're going to kind of create sort of like a cross between your experience with the headset and on the internet by making this like 3D avatar that can kind of do stuff, and that will be projected in the space. So it'll be like an interim sort of avatar while people buy the stuff, because the same thing happened with television, right? Like television was invented in like the 1920s, but people didn't own television sets till the 1950s. And I think it was the internet was like invented in like the 70s, like the early incarnations of it, but people didn't really start using it till the 90s. So there's always this kind of a lag, right?
Yeah, well, and then there's that push and pull. Like I think that it will be great to develop this technology more, but I think then the pushback for it will be like, oh, people will want to do more tactile things. Like, because this will now be a expected thing that everyone will be on technology, there'll be another wave of letting hands-on work that is sort of dying out come back as a resurgence, like, because you'll need those more haptic and tactile things to balance it out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, kind of like think about the slow food movement, right? Because everybody, like for all those years, advertisers were trying to get people to eat food out of a can or out of a microwave frozen meal or from fast food. And there was a bit of a backlash, and I think nobody would argue that something that was made with love by grandma or nana, like it's always going to be a superior experience. I think one good thing about this happening though is for people like me. I'm in Malawi. I've met some wonderful, amazing Malawian artists, designers, but there's not a big community here, and I'm a foreigner on top of it. So if I want to go to your show in Boston or wherever, I could use if there's a metaverse, gathering or things of that nature, I can actually join even though I'm quite far away. So, or as an online educator, I love the idea of like having a classroom full of students from different continents, all meeting up, time zone permitting, in a space. I think that's really cool. So I'm really looking forward to that.
I like the idea of it too. I just hope that there's just as much in person as there is virtual, because you do need that balance. And I think socially, just being all virtual makes for some weird things happening.
Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be like a whole level of pranking going on in the metaverse.
And like you said before, the metaverse, the other thing we have to work on with the metaverse is like how we can have a glass of wine at an opening and have some hors d'oeuvres, because that's just, a little bit tricky when we're all gathering virtually together.
I know. Well, the thing that I love the most about old-fashioned gallery opening or closing is maybe you have like some people playing music. You're there. You can pick up the artist cards and stuff like that, and the wine and the cheese and the nibbles. And
Yeah, like my mom when she
yeah.
went to my one of my shows, and I don't know, she didn't pay attention to my artwork, but she really liked the pineapple. She was like,
funny.
"Oh, they have pineapple." So like we can't get pineapple in the metaverse just yet.
And I honestly, it's so funny because I have a 12-year-old and a 10-year-old, and I showed them first the Ready Player One movie, but then that was like my segue to get them reading the books. And then we read the sequel, Ready Player Two, and no matter how advanced and futuristic they get, they can never bring food into their virtual worlds. They do I don't want, no, it's not a spoiler, but in Ready Player Two, they introduce smelling. And I think even in Ready Player One, and I think it even exists now, like in the internet, that somebody's working on, creating that sense of smell in, oh no, this brings us back to Smelly Sculpture Boys. I
Yeah,
don't think I would want.
you don't want that sense of smell. I think we should work on the food still. You don't want a bunch of hangry people in the metaverse.
Yeah, speaking of hangry, Troy says local and global metaverse. I love that. I wonder if he coined that or if he heard that. But should we? Well, first of all, before we go,
Michael left. Is he in the other room trying to be?
he, I think what he did is I think he set it up so that all I have to do is put it on my head, and I'll be
Okay.
there.
I didn't know if
So
he was joining with the headset or if you were joining with the headset.
I was actually going to join both ways if it's possible. Like I was going to go use the app if I don't crash my computer, and with the headset, because that way, if somebody wants to talk to me in the
Yes,
gallery,
that
I
way you
can
can speak.
respond. But meanwhile, I'm going to keep Stacey on here so you can ask Stacey questions in the metaverse as well. We don't know if anyone's going to join us or not, or it may be because the thing is, it's like you got the Facebook people that are into Facebook, but the people who are in ArtgateVR are already in there. They're like going to all the events. So it may be that we go to our gallery and there may be people that weren't in the Facebook Live in there, or it could just be Stacey and I, and that's fine too. We'll just like have to high five each other.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah, but thank you for everyone who joined us, and I know that people will be joining the recorded version, although I have to see how much of this recorded, maybe the whole thing, because I think it's actually on Facebook's end, just my computer is being a bit weird, and it's angry with me because I'm trying to do too many things on my computer. It's probably time to get a new computer, or at least to
Or
clean
maybe
it.
to feed it.
Yeah, delete stuff.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us here. And I will hang for a little bit just to see if there's any, metaverse technical questions. And then we'll try to enter the metaverse together, go visit the gallery, and we'll move around together like colorful little hands.
Do
You'll
we
see.
want to? Sorry, do we want to keep this live going? Do you want to like literally like see me like this in the live?
I don't know. Do you want me to stay here? Or do you want me to go into the metaverse? I could do
Yeah,
either.
no. I think we can close the live, well, or maybe we'll just take a real quick check to see if there's any other comments. I don't think there's any questions, but if there
All right,
are,
let's close the live.
okay. So just one thing before I forget, the post of this live, I'm going to put all the links that we talked about. So actually, I'm going to do that right now before I go to the metaverse. But I'll just start to load it up, the app. So I'll be on my way, let it load, and I'm going to pop in some links. So the ArtgateVR, Artavita Collective. What else were we talking about? I'm just trying. Oh, the YouTube video where you can see us dancing in the gallery. In case you just want to visit the gallery that way through a YouTube video. So many options.
Sounds good. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the metaverse.
Woo! Thank you. Bye, guys. All right, I'm going to close this.
Bye-bye.